Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Go All Out, a show where I try anything and everything and report it back to you guys. In this episode, I'm going to try to master 5 skills that I've never tried before. The reason I wanted to do this episode was because I had a couple different skills that I never learned growing up or I've always wanted to learn and I just never had the time to do it. So this video gives me a really good excuse to do that, and it's also a way for you guys to see if these skills are masterable in one day. And let me tell you, some of them are not. So without further blabbering, let's get into day number 1. For the first day, I wanted to choose something that I had tried before, but I'd never set aside time to do on my own, which is why I chose meditating, because it is something that I've done in yoga at the end of like the hour practice, but it's never something that I've done on my own separate from yoga. So I went online and I did a bunch of research figuring out the best ways and techniques for a beginner to do meditation. And I read up on some tips and then I set aside 20 minutes to do it on day 1. So I decided to do it on my bed because a lot of the tips I read were do it in a place where you're comfortable. So I figured my bed was the best place to do that. So I sat on my bed, I started out cross-legged, I played some music out of my phone, I just closed my eyes and I tried to concentrate on my breathing. I would say it probably took me about 5 minutes to adjust to the meditation. I had to get a pillow for my back because I wasn't uncomfortable. I started concentrating too much on the sounds outside of my window, so I got headphones and that really helped a lot. And then I started thinking about how long I was going to be doing this for, so I stopped. I set a timer on my phone so that I wouldn't have to worry about like falling asleep or anything like that. And then after I got all set with all of that, I really got in the mood and I started concentrating really on my breathing and I felt like I was getting something out of it. I almost felt like I went into a dream state. My head started getting really light. I started feeling very peaceful and calm, and I just concentrated on the music and I concentrated on the breathing. And then all of a sudden my alarm went off and my meditation was over, and it was really nice and it was really relaxing, and I didn't feel tired. I felt really refreshed. I felt ready to start my day because I did it in the morning. And I liked it so much that I did it again at night, and I figured this time it might even be easier for me because it's darker. So I did the same thing. I had my pillow on my back, I put my headphones in, I set my timer, but I also put on my oil diffuser this time to kind of fill the room with incense. And it really got me in the mood to sleep, and I slept so well that night. So if you're thinking about trying meditation, I definitely recommend doing some research. I'll put some links in the description box below of places that I found tips, but this is definitely something that I think that I will try over and over again to really get the hang of and to help me when I get really stressed out, because Lord knows with finals coming up, that's gonna happen. So for day number 2, I wanted to try something that I had literally never done before. I've seen other people do it and I've always been jealous of the skill, and I've just never gotten around to trying it. So that's why I chose calligraphy for day number 2. To be clear, I'm not doing traditional calligraphy, I'm just doing fake calligraphy because I didn't want to go out and have to buy all the equipment like a calligraphy pen and all the little nibs, which are the tips of the pen, and the ink and all that, because I didn't know if I was going to like it, if I was going to be good at it, and I didn't want to spend the money on it. So I just used the pens that I had, and I tried a couple different pens, and I'll get into which ones worked for me in a second. So I started out by literally just looking on the internet. I looked at a couple YouTube videos to show me how I could do this. I read a bunch of different articles to teach me kind of what would be the best way, what would be the best pens, and then eventually I just looked calligraphy phrases on Google Images, and I found one and I just started copying it, and that turned out really well. I was really happy with how that first couple phrases turned out just by me looking at a picture and copying down the cursive and then the thick parts and the thin parts. And I did that a couple times, and then eventually I wanted to move into doing it on my own. So I had read that doing calligraphy, what makes the thin and the thick strokes is whenever you're writing a letter and you're moving downward, the stroke is thick because the nib of the pen opens up to let more ink out. When you're going up, it's thinner because the 2 little doors on the nib close, so it makes a thinner line. So I started to mimic that and kind of figure out where I was going downward on my letters and where I was going upward. And that was a little bit shakier. It didn't turn out as well as the copied pictures that I had done, but it still looked really cool. I did it probably for a couple hours before I really started to get the hang of it. But I think that calligraphy is something I'm still gonna have to work on, and I'm actually considering buying a calligraphy pen to learn how to do it in the traditional sense. So if you're thinking about trying calligraphy, I think a really good way to start out is just by doing fake calligraphy, so you don't have to spend any money and you still get the same effect. I found that gel pens work the best because they still have that like wet inkiness that a calligraphy pen would have, and it's not like the regular pens that the ink is very controlled coming out of it. My tips if you're trying to start out calligraphy is do your research, use a gel pen because that really makes the work a lot easier. Use a light hand because sometimes I found myself pressing down really, really hard and it wasn't necessary to do that at all. And practice, 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 practice. I'm really happy I tried it. It's a really cool skill and I'm excited to dive into it more. So for day 3, I wanted to learn this skill because if you've ever been at a party or with a big group of people and you need to get everybody's attention, the way to do it is by whistling loud with your fingers. And there's always like that one person there who does it and just looks so cool and would be really helpful in some situations. So this is something that I wanted to learn. I had no idea how to do it. So I went on YouTube, I watched like 4 or 5 videos and I learned the 2-finger technique. We're using 2 fingers like this. But I think that this whistling technique is something that you really have to practice and you have to devote some time to figuring out how to position your hands, because from what I saw, it's different for everybody. Everybody has to adjust their hands in different ways to get the whistle to come out. So I'm kind of on my way, but I don't think that this was something that I could have mastered in one day. Another thing was it's kind of messy, like I just had saliva coming out of my mouth and it was disgusting, and eventually I just got frustrated and gave up. But I definitely will continue to work on it because I think it's a really cool skill. So for day number 4, I decided to take it up a notch and try something that I've always wanted to do literally since I was a kid, and I just never got it. When I was in gym class in elementary school, we always had the circus unit and everybody could learn how to juggle. They started out with those like sheer scarves and they could learn how to do it. It looked so cool and I could never ever get it down. So I decided that this week I was gonna try and master it. Let me tell you, it was so much harder than I thought it would be. I didn't have anything sheer to start out with, so I YouTubed everything and I found a couple different ones. I think I watched 2. I'll link them down below. They were very helpful. So I went to the dining hall and I got some oranges, and these were my juggling balls. And I started out with the technique. They show you how to stand with your feet wide. Then they show you how to catch with one ball, just throwing it back and forth so you get the throw down. Then they have you add a second ball, and with the second ball you throw the 2 balls back and forth to each other to get the hang of the switching of the hands and the throwing and the technique. And those first 2 steps I had down really good. I didn't have any problems with it and they were near perfect. Then they have you add the 3rd ball, and this is where I start to get into trouble. So they want you to just do like 1 rotation, so just 3 throws, and it took me a while. I was dropping the oranges everywhere. The oranges started breaking. I was getting so frustrated, but eventually I did get a couple rotations in where I would just go 1, 2, 3 and I would be able to catch them. And I started to get the hang of that, but my problem was I was throwing the 3rd orange way out far and I had to like run to get it, and sometimes I would drop it and sometimes I would get it, but then I couldn't. It made it hard to continue the rotation when the 3rd orange was all the way out in front of me and I had to run to get it. So I ended up taking a break. When my oranges started breaking, that's when I knew I should take a break. So I took a break, and the next day I started practicing again and again and again, and I really started to get it this time. And like 1 or 2 times I could get a 4th throw in there to continue, but I could never get farther than that. So I don't think juggling is something that you can master in one day. And I don't think I was expecting to be able to master it in one day because I already don't have talent to begin with. But I definitely want to continue to practice it because it's just like a fun party trick and I've always wanted to do it. So it's fun, it's really hard, and it takes a lot of practice, a lot. So for my last and final day of new skills, I wanted to try something that I had never tried before. Literally everybody and their mother has tried it before, but I just never got an interest in it, I suppose. And so I wanted to try and learn to play Sims. One of my friends has the Sims game and she always plays it when I'm around her, and it just looks like so much fun, but it was never something that I was interested in. We never had it on our computer. I literally never learned how to play it. I just knew that you controlled these little Sims and you controlled their lives and their relationships, and if they had kids, and I guess you can have pets now, and you build their houses and they have connections with other people and they talk and they cook and whatever. But I knew nothing of it, so I was so excited to try it because I felt like I was really behind on some trend. And it has been so popular for like the longest time since I can remember. So my friend let me suck off her Sims game, and together we created this little family, which I didn't film that, but we had a cat, a dog, and then a married couple. And let me tell you, Sims was so stressful. It was so fun, but it was so stressful. In the first 5 minutes of me playing, one of the girls had set herself on fire by trying to make mac and cheese for lunch. Then she almost died and we had to use a cheat code so she wouldn't die. Then my cat got sick, so then we had to take the cat to the vet, and then you have to wait at the vet for the nurse to come get the cat, and then you have to pay a whole lot of money so the cat can get the best treatment. So that was super duper stressful. All while that was happening, we had the welcome wagon coming to our house, welcoming us to the neighborhood because we were new, and we had to go talk to them for a certain amount of time while the clock ran out. All while one of the women was super stressed because she had just been on fire, and the other one had taken the cat to the vet, and it was just like a whole fiasco, but we got through it. I needed a lot of help to get through it, but I got through it. And then some random girl that we'd never even met, she just came to the house, or she texted us and said, "Do you want to go to dinner?" So then we went with her to dinner, ordered off a menu, and it was really fun. I learned how to move around on the keyboard and like different things that you can do. I probably spent like an hour doing it. I definitely think I would have a hard time doing it again on my own. I would need help. Like, it's more complicated than people think it is, because I didn't grow up doing it. So I don't know how anything works or how to do this. If you want to cook, you have to click on the stove instead of clicking on the person and directing them to cook. You have to click on the stove and make sure you're on the right sim that you want to cook. But overall, it was a lot of fun. It was really stressful, but I think it's a really fun game to play, and I'm glad that I tried it. So those were my 5 days of trying 5 different skills. I was really happy with myself for committing to this and doing a different skill every single day and trying to learn something new, something that I had never tried before, but I've always wanted to try. So if you have a skill that you've always wanted to try but have never had the time to try, maybe it's something from your childhood like me with juggling, or it's something that you've seen your friends do like Sims and calligraphy, I think it's a really good idea and really fun to set aside some time when you just have some free time to try out that skill, maybe with that friend, or looking up YouTube. That was like a really great resource for me because you can see exactly how people do it. There's lots of different videos out there showing you different techniques if you can't get it one way or the other. So I definitely think it's a really fun and cool idea to do this if you're thinking about picking up a new skill. But a lot of them that I tried at least take practice. I would say all of them take a lot of practice, more time than I committed to them, but I think that it's something that I will continue to learn over the next year, next decade, my entire life. I don't know. But I had a lot of fun this week, and now I have 5 new skills that I can try out and continue to grow with. This will be the last video for Go All Out for this semester. I know we've only come out with 2. This is like the second. But we were a little late getting the ball rolling on the series, but I am hoping to start it up again next semester in the fall. So if you do have any ideas, make sure to leave them in the comments below. while you're down there. Hit that subscribe button so you know when the next video comes out for next semester, and like this video if you liked it. See you next semester.